Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions Daily, 4 p.m. GMT. Myself, Danny McMillan. Today I'm joined by Leo, Tim, Nathan, and we're waiting for Joe to arrive. He should be here soon. So Leo, can we start? We'll go around the room. We'll go clockwork on the screen. Can we start with you first? You want to give people an introduction on who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, Danny, thanks for having me on. And to everyone listening, hope everyone's keeping well and staying safe. My name's Leo Filisberto. I represent Sellers Funding. So for those of you who don't know who we are, we provide working capital solutions for e-commerce businesses in the US, UK, and Europe.
Excellent. Tim Jordan.
Tim Jordan. I'm a seller, I'm a coach, and I work as a strategic consultant for, I guess, a number of other companies in the industry.
Excellent. And Nathan, do you want to do an intro?
Hi everybody. I'm Nathan Fox. I'm representing Payoneer. Echo what Leo said. Thanks, Danny, for having me on, and hope everyone at home's keeping well. So for those of you who don't know about Payoneer, we're the market-leading payment solution for e-commerce sellers, providing cross-border trade as well as working capital for Amazon and Walmart.
Sounds good. Right, guys, before we get started, I just have a quick request to the audience out there. What I'm doing at the moment, I'm on a drive to get some masks to our NHS on the front line. I know across the world, everyone is struggling to get masks. There's a lot of politics over here. So what I've been asking is for Amazon sellers that I've got stock landed in the UK, please get in touch with me. You know how to reach me. I'm easy to be found. And please, can you donate some of these masks? We've got people that contact me on a daily basis. They're wearing towels across their face. There's politics with the NHS. So there seems to be an abundance of masks out there, but the red tape is stopping it from happening. So I've created this thing which is called donor matching. So I'm now putting people in touch with these masks, in touch with frontline people. And it might only be 20, it might be 30 or so you can spare. It doesn't matter. The fact is you'll be saving lives. So anyone out there, please get in touch, and then I'll put you in touch with the right people, and let's get helping some people. Now, I think Joe is about to join us. Hello, Joe. How you doing? You're gonna say hello? Oh. Yeah, you're live. Do you know that you are live? Right? Yeah.
So, indeed, yes. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Joe, do you want to quickly give an introduction to yourself, and then we'll get kicking on with the show?
Joe, my name is Joe Jakes. I am an Amazon seller, 225-year-old family toys and games business. We do just over 7 figures a month, pounds on Amazon now. So yeah, all good.
Excellent. Okay, so guys, today, so the idea behind it is we want to see how far we can stretch that dollar and stretch that pound and credit cards and stuff like that. So we're going to talk loans, we're going to talk cross-border, and there's the other thing that's escaped me now, but we will get into that shortly. So Tim, can we just kick things off first with you? You did put a post out there last week about Amazon lending. Can you give us an update and what's going on with that and what people should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'll give the brief history on what happened. And it was a couple weeks ago when Amazon, especially in the U.S., started restricting inbound shipments. Of course, that's a problem. That's going to make it tough to sell stuff. It's going to make it tough to keep your revenue up. It's going to make it tough to keep in business. Yeah. And I started working with Reuters actually on a news story about that. And then the next day, someone that's in my coaching community reached out and said, "Hey, Tim, we have a problem. Our Amazon loans are still coming up due, and we can't get inventory in." And they sent me some sheets from the Amazon lending terms of service that state that if you drop below a certain threshold in inventory value in FBA or in sales revenue, Amazon can automatically default on your loans. Yeah. So we had a bunch of people that were saying, "Man, I got this $40,000 loan coming out this month and I can't get any sales." And remember, It's not just the FBA inbound issue. It was like 2 months of supply chain issues before that with the virus in China. Remember, we had Chinese New Year, we had all the factories shut down. Then we've got the FBA stuff. So people are like 3 months out of stock. Yeah. So we started work with Reuters, and I put a poll up on one of the bigger Facebook communities.
You can name it. It's fine.
The FBA high rollers.
Exactly. We're an open platform. Feel free. Yeah.
And man, all these people started reaching out to me. I went back and looked this weekend. I had over 250 people private messaging me about the loans, and most of them were saying, "Hey, man, I'm in trouble. Like, I can't make this loan payment. They're going to pull this payment out of my account, or I'm definitely at risk of default." So
Yeah.
Reuters ran the story. Some people from Amazon touched base. And then we know that I think it was last week, Amazon sent some stuff out saying, hey, to the end of April, if you have a loan from the U.S. marketplace, we're going to defer your interest and defer your payments due to the end of April. So that was some short-term relief. But the long-term issue right now is not just the lending, it's the lack of sales, the lack of revenue, compounded on like loans are still due. And I know a lot of people have lines of credit, people have SBA loans here in the US, people have credit cards, and they're not all deferring their payments either. So the lack of revenue over 3 months of supply chain issues has trickled down into some really bad cash flow problems that especially are impacting lending. And with Amazon now retracting their loans, they're not offering loans anymore. A lot of other banks have done so as well. I know that, we've got some folks here from lending companies who are going to talk about that a little bit and some issues that are going on their side or some changes. But it's been quite a turbulent cash flow, cash related few weeks here in the e-commerce space.
Yes. Joe, you've taken out loans or continue to take out loans. You're an 8-figure seller. What kind of impact is that on you, or what have you observed?
We only really work on loans for sort of top ups and bits and pieces. We're in the process of looking at some funding, but we're sort of more traditional with banks and sort of trade finance funding, because that's kind of obviously the cheapest first port of call.
Yeah.
That application process is still ongoing, so it's really the complexities of whether you want to go through all the form filling and all the feedback and all the reporting to it, or whether you just go for a higher rate and kind of take the low hanging fruit of these sorts of guys. But yeah, Amazon lending, obviously we never take up to 100 grand, because beyond that, we've also got a HQ, which is usual things. Banks want extra charges and Amazon want extra notes above 100K. So we just kind of take the 100K as and when it pops up if we fancy it. But it's not really anything structural. I guess we're in a very lucky position now because we've obviously got our own warehouse. We're just switching over from FBA to FBM.
Yeah.
And we're in toys, which of course toys have gone bananas. So we haven't had the short-term cash hiccup. I don't quite know how people are coping short-term cash hiccup wise, but hey, that's what these guys are for.
Yeah. Tim, so putting the crystal ball out in front, and what is your guesstimation? When do you think that's going to appear back in Seller Central? When are people going to start seeing this again, or is it going to be a while? What's your take on this?
Crystal ball, I have nothing to substantiate this, but here's what I think. And let me say this. This is some encouraging news, all right? I know a lot of people are stressed out. There's real problems going on in this world, but there's some headlines too. One of the reasons that Amazon is retracting on a lot of their tools, their widgets, their features, their promotions, all that stuff, is because they've got too much dang business. Like the headlines are, oh, this fulfillment center has, confirmed cases of the virus, they're shutting down. No, the vast majority of Amazon can't keep up. People are buying more than they've ever bought online. Like this is an amazing time. Joe just said, hey, he's selling toys. Like, who would have thought toys would blow up? But with everybody at home trying to entertain their kids, this is probably better than any Q4 you've ever had, Joe, if I had to guess. Like, as far as toys.
Yeah, it's second biggest ever week. Yeah. And our second biggest ever month in 225 years of history. So it's all right.
So here's what my crystal ball is saying. E-commerce is going to be bigger after this. People are going to adopt it in the larger percentage as far as buyers. People are getting more accustomed to it. Amazon has to catch up. And here's the thing. You can love Jeff Bezos. You can hate him. I think most of us at least respect him. The thing that Amazon does well, and I can say this about other e-commerce platforms too, is they adjust to what's needed. When they catch up, I think this will come back. But remember, Amazon lending isn't just Amazon loaning money. They work with other banks too, these more traditional banks. And some of you guys know who they are. I think it's Bank of America and some other ones. But those banks are the ones that probably had more of a determining factor on retracting that loan. So Amazon may be fast to react. The banks may be a little bit slower because I think they're worried about a potential global recession coming after all of this. So I don't know about lending, but I do know that Amazon should be popping back up really fast with all these tools because they're just trying to catch up and the demand is greater than it's ever been.
Cool. Right, Leo, let's bring you in. Sellers funding, we know what you do, but do you want to explain a little bit more how the instrument works for the people that are listening in case they're looking. And again, I'll come over to Nate because you do something similar. I know you took that attribute away off your website recently organically, because ultimately at the end of the day, there is a risk factor that's got to be controlled on both ends. So Leo, can you kind of be very candid how this kind of breaks down for those people who are not sure how to take out loans beyond Amazon? How do these work? Not just your company, but the general marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we're seeing now in the marketplace is there are a couple of different suite of products that are offered and that are tailored specifically to e-commerce businesses, right? So I think you have term loans, which we see a lot out there, which are pretty standard and similar to bank loans, which you can receive that go up to 12 months or longer in nature and are going to be on an amortized fee schedule, right? And then there are revenue advances or capital advances that are more similar to just cash flow management funding, right? So those are going to be a little shorter term in nature, anywhere from 1 month, let's say, to 6 or 7 months in maturity. And those typically you'll see are charged at a discount fee in market. So we offer those two products along with a couple of others that we can also tailor, again, to the specific situation and seller that we're working with. And so I think the benefit of some of these products as well, especially in a time like this that we're experiencing, is the type of grace period or interest only period that you're able to access, right? So I think as we heard Tim saying, and as you mentioned, and we were speaking earlier, I think there's definitely a silver lining in all of this. And there's certainly a light at the end of this tunnel, right? So I think if businesses are able to just navigate through these choppy waters, whether it be for the next 1, 2, 3 months, I think we're going to come out on the other end a lot stronger from this. So if you're able to access some capital, manage the capital that you do have efficiently, I think that businesses can do well on the other end of this.
So what is the criteria generally in the market? Not just you, this isn't the pitch, as you know how we operate.
Of course.
What is the general consensus of what would like a company like yours and Nate's company look at for when lending? Where does the confidence come from? You know, give me an example. It's like, are you going to lend money to people with non-essential items that can't sell in this period? Being realistic. It's only because we need to be 100% realistic for the people that are listening to see where they go from. So you've got to protect your interests without a doubt because you're running a business, not a charity. Same as Nate. What would you look for if someone says Amazon's just pulled funding? Where am I going to get this money from? They come to someone like you. What would they need to do to meet the kind of criteria as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of things. I think you're definitely seeing industry-wide, not only in the alternative lending space, but lending in general, a more conservative approach, right? Given the uncertainty of the landscape and scenario that we're seeing right now. So what we've been doing at Sellers Funding is following the guidelines that Amazon has put out, but then also looking at applications and queries on a case-by-case basis, right? Because I think just a 5-minute application doesn't tell the whole story, right, of the business. So I think you have to get on the phone. It has to be a personal conversation to really understand what's going on with the business. And that's what we've been doing. So I think there are a number of different businesses out there that are still within our community trying to help. And then beyond that, I would also say to definitely, if you can, try to take advantage of any government-sponsored programs that are out there, right? So I think that's still very important, another route that people should be exploring as well.
Yeah, and obviously in different countries they vary, won't they? Sorry, go on, Joe.
Just on that, I've obviously been, because we're in this process of funding and the announcement of all this government-backed loans and all this kind of thing that's come out, I've been having a really good look at it. And in fact, looking at it with a sort of a business network I sit with, not Amazon people, but kind of high e-com and decent-sized businesses. And they're virtually impossible to get any of those.
Yeah, it's a carrot.
To be absolutely honest.
Yeah,
it's an absolute carrot. Yeah. It's there's very little chance of anybody getting their usual bank lending criteria. So unless you've got a monstrously healthy business that almost doesn't need it, you've got no chance of getting them. About the only thing people can get is this 80%.
Yeah, but what you're talking about when you follow the direct, you know, you follow. You talk about the 80% where the government pays, right? That but that's only for staff. Yeah, that's for staff. But people should be aware of this as well. I spoke to someone yesterday, and this is obviously a live and a call, but off record at the same time. Take from this what you will. It's very good time for the government to collect data, right? So when you dangle that carrot of 80% to pay your staff, what it does, it draws out all of those contractors that were not paying their taxes and stuff, it's a smoke screen as well. So it draws those out. So find out, like, painter and decorators, laborers, all these different people that may be of undervaluing their taxes. They're seeing that as a way forward. And this is a great coup for the government to collect information. It's the same thing for senior citizens and getting them to go online and change their mindset in terms of what kind of work that they would do as well. So our government basically, it's working in two ways. There's a great data collection opportunity here to smoke out like the people that are not being paying up as they should do, and also for the bettering and the make good of this country. But you're right, Joe. It's tough with the lending procedures over in the UK because it looks all good on paper and everyone feels warm and fuzzy inside, but it's very difficult. I know someone who deferred mortgage payments, and it was like, he thought he could just contact them and put his mortgage off, maybe silly or not, for 3 months. It cost him £402 for the pleasure to move his mortgage payments. So there's a lot of things out there that there's the promises and they're hiding them away. But Leo, coming back to you, give me some other examples of what you would like to see. Where does the confidence come from? Someone approaches you tomorrow. You've already said that you would have a personal chat with them on the phone to get an understanding of their business. What would you be looking for?
Yeah, again, especially in these unprecedented times, I think first and foremost is length of business, right? So if there's a track record, if there's a history that we can get comfortable around, and knowing that, of course, performance and sales may have taken a dip, but due specifically to what we're seeing right now, I think that's a big positive. So I think if we look at a strong history, that's a scenario where even if they maybe don't check the essentials box, but this is a business that I think has found a way around being able to supply their products, has kind of sorted out their logistics issue, that we would still be willing to provide funding with. And a lot of these businesses, what we're doing, again, just try to kind of plug this gap, is up to 90-day interest only or up to 60-day grace period as well. So there's no payments coming out of their pocket. And then we're also extending duration as well. So this allows the payments to be reduced at a lower nominal rate, so that they can keep up with and managing their cash flows as well.
Excellent. Nate, I'll bring you in. I haven't really had a chance to speak to you yet. Do you want to give a bit background on the type of instruments that you've got for loans, and what do you as Payoneer expect to see from companies?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, similar to sellers funding, we would look at the kind of length of time that the seller's been online or selling on Amazon, see how what we would do is compare maybe trends to a certain period from now compared to, let's say, last year. So, if sales have drastically dropped due to the situation, or as in Joe's case, they may have actually gone up. So that kind of gives us a comparative tool to see how well they're coping in this period, and again, mitigate our risk. Again, we have a similar product where we go off kind of Amazon volumes. We look at the kind of typical Amazon metrics, your order defect rate, pre-fulfillment cancel rate. So these are the tools that, providers like ourselves and other providers will use to kind of measure a business metrics, rather than going off a credit score or a personal guarantee. So we tend to go off the store performance rather than the business, credit profile.
Cool. Just want to quickly say hello to the audience here. If they've got any questions as well, let's go through this. Hello, Jason. Welcome back, Tin, Ricky, Abe, Marvin, also Yulia, Gabrielle, Bill McDowell's here as well. Stephanie, good to see you. Rich Hawkins, good to see you too. Tiffany, back again. Thanks for the show. Much needed. I know a lot of Amazon sellers are having a challenging time. Bogdan, good to see you here. Who else have we got here? Tony Cigar. So guys, if you've got any questions for the gentleman here, please let us know. We'll answer them as best as possible. So I think we kind of covered some of the loan elements. Hello, Owen, how are you doing? Covered the loan side of things. Let's talk a little bit about currency and how you can benefit now. I did mention to Leo, of course, I can't remember who told me this, and I know that we did it on the show. It may be Kian Gilzari, where if you track what has been going on with the Chinese yen and then the dollar, they were looking at the factory. When you're placing your order, you got your fixed costs, right? But obviously the fluctuation within the rate, it worked out that the factory was having it right off, right? So they're making a few extra grand there. And what they've done is they negotiated to do a split where they go, okay, look, you benefit and I benefit, and run that back into stock. On terms of cross-border, what are some little hacks that the audience can do to make their money go further? Starting with you. Sorry, go on. You go first, Nate. Apologies.
No worries. I think, as everyone said, it's quite unprecedented times, and the kind of currency fluctuations have been so drastic over the last kind of couple of weeks. I mean, for instance, you would have gained, like, I think around a 5% more now than you would have maybe 6 weeks ago if you were selling on Amazon, .com or US as a UK business. So it's really, really hard to kind of predict what's going to happen next. I mean, you can try and mitigate your risk with maybe forward contracts to kind of know what you're going to get in the future. But again, in such uncertain times, you might actually lose out a lot in that scenario. So it could swing both ways. I mean, I think sellers were pretty happy last week when the pound to dollar was so weak. So if you were selling on Amazon.com, you probably gained a lot more back. I know the pound's kind of crept back a bit up this week. But hacks you can do, I think you just got to be vigilant. You've got to really assess the market. I know we don't have a crystal ball, but you've got to really try and be mindful not to make drastic or urgent decisions. In terms of supplier payments now, maybe holding the dollar currency might be the best thing for you to do, instead of repatriating that back to pounds as you might be maybe used to. So maybe hold a bit more currency in euros and dollars, and watch how the market kind of trends go up and down before you actually commit to a trade.
Tim, you're nodding your head. Come on, you're bursting with information to share, aren't you?
All right,
Come
so
on, let's let you go. Go on.
Let me tell you what I've been doing. Actually, let me back up to what I discovered about a year ago.
Go on.
For those of you that don't know, I'll give you the brief history. I used to own a sourcing company in China, and I had an office in Shanghai. I had a bunch of staff there. We were moving mountains of money from all over the world for our sourcing company. What I found out was that Chinese factories are usually hedging their invoices up a few percentage, generally about 5%. And the reason that they do this is because they can't accept a loss, right? So they expect us to. So what they do is they take their cost, their estimate, bump it up about 5%, and then send me an invoice in USD, or send it to you, Danny, in pounds, whatever it is. That way, if the Chinese dollar or the Chinese pound or RMB, whatever it is, the yuan, takes a nosedive, they're covered. So what I started doing is I started getting invoices in RMB. And what that did for me is it allowed me to take that 5% off. So when I had to transfer money from USD to CNY, there was a little currency exchange fee as opposed to just going USD to USD account. And there's some suppliers that need USD because they have like some special government programs they're bringing in US dollars or something. But generally speaking, it saved me money by transferring to RMB and paying my suppliers that way. What I'm doing now is I'm getting an invoice from them, a pro forma invoice in RMB and USD. Right. And I'm negotiating to have the ability to pay in either. All right. So if one currency goes up or down, I can pick and choose what it is. So of course, like we've talked about, I can park, like Nate's talked about, I can park currencies or park funding in different currencies and then transfer it when it best suits, the currency exchange rates. But as far as suppliers, I'm getting invoices in both currencies and paying with whichever one makes the most sense at the time.
Cool. That's good. That's the little hack that people can do out there. So walk through the steps. How would they approach their supplier with this method? What was your cunning idea of how you approach, and what is your relationship with that supplier? Because that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, well, most suppliers are making money on that currency exchange anyways, or they have a reason to keep their money in USD. So you have to sweet talk and you have to convince them, hey, this is, more protection for me, and I need this protection right now. Things are going crazy. The dollar is tanking and all that stuff. So if I get an invoice in USD and the USD tanks, right, then that's not necessarily good for them either. But if it's stronger, that's better for me. So what I'm doing is I'm telling them, hey, if the USD continues to dip, this is not good. I need to be able to pay in RMB, right? So basically I just sweet talk them and tell them, hey, this could go either way for both of us. This just assures you that your costs are the same, because when they pretty much come out and give me an invoice. They know what their costs are going to be. It's not going to change too much. So they actually prefer for me to pay with RMB generally. Right, about 80% of my factories prefer that because there's less risk on their parts, right? Because if the USD tanks, that's not good for them. If it drops 5% or 6%, they're losing money. And again, if the USD increases, then I'll pay with USD. I'll get them to have the option. But right now, the dollar is dropping, somewhat regularly. It's moving back and forth pretty fast. So to be honest, they're so confused by it. Most of my suppliers, and they're so unsure. They're kind of doing whatever I want. Right now, the suppliers need work. They need work. They're coming off of a long, hiatus of orders coming in. People are unsure about what's going to happen, so their orders are slowing down. So they're more likely to work with us. And what's cool about this is this could set a precedent for my long-term supplier to continue to keep having this RMB option long into the future.
Yeah, sounds good. Joe, I see you grinning like a Cheshire cat earlier on when Tim was talking. Is there anything you want to add there, the little hack that you're doing with your factories?
Get as much credit time as you can, so you choose when you pay. So I now have good credit terms with all factories, which is always a good thing, and I always get all my invoices in RMB.
Yeah.
And then we literally convert it on that day to the dollars. So I kind of they have zero risk. It allows me to negotiate, the very best RMB prices. So you're just I'm always someone that likes to not hedge a bet. I like to kind of mitigate the risk and play fairly. So I like to go at RMB invoice prices.
Yeah. Can we go back to forward contract just for people in the audience who may not fully understand the concept and when best to utilize them? I'll go back to Nate on this one. You want to kick that off?
Yeah, so I guess a forward contract, you're essentially just, booking in advance a specific amount of foreign currency and kind of locking in that rate to kind of, mitigate your risk and make sure that what you're getting at the end of the day. Sellers and businesses might use this just because they are maybe risk averse. They don't want to, chance it with the market, see if it goes up or down. And they'd rather just know their costs and how much they're spending for a guaranteed period. Other sellers might just use, as I think Joe just alluded to, he just picks the spot on the day, so he can kind of watch the market and see how it fluctuates and just make the best decision for the business at the time. But a forward contract would be a bit more forward planning and just having a set amount that you can spend at a certain rate without worrying about any market fluctuations.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you want to add anything here, Leo?
Yeah, just I guess some unsolicited advice, but to the extent possible, I think if people are able to access a forward contract, I think especially at these levels are very interesting, especially on the cable pair, the USD GBP, because if you take a look at what forward consensus, 1 year consensus is still for the pound sterling, it's probably around 129, 130. If you agree, Nate, and we're seeing levels right now 124. So it means essentially if you could lock in a rate right now to £5 a year in the future, I call it 125, or a year down the road it's going to cost 131. I mean, you're already making a good amount of a mark there. So I think it's definitely for the people in the right scenario. It makes a lot of sense right now, given all the volatility that we're seeing.
Cool. Tim, any other hacks you got in terms of currency, what to do right now, whether that's in the EU, whether that's US, whether China, what other things that people can do to stretch the dollar a little bit further?
I don't know. It's changing so fast up and down that it's hard to really get a game plan together. And I'm not super savvy on finances, but I do know that right now I'm seeing a lot of people overreact to things. Mm-hmm. Okay. So one piece of advice I'd give is tell people to just settle down a little bit, sleep on big decisions. If you see the US dollar really tanking, just wait, because it will rebound the next day. If you see RMB blowing through the roof, just wait, because the next day it's probably gonna solidify. I went through this weekend and looked at a lot of currency fluctuations, and there's a lot of really big spikes, but generally all of them are kind of staying fairly consistent. So if you see a really big spike, don't overreact, don't freak out, let it come back. Just like the U.S. stock market's been on the news. Everybody's seeing it take massive dives, but then a few days later, it might make huge comebacks, and that's not on the news. right?
Yeah.
So people are seeing a lot of the sky is falling, a lot of the negative headlines. It's a short-term crisis. I honestly believe that, whether that's 6 weeks or 6 months, it's still short-term in the big grand scheme of things. So don't make any massive decisions quickly and based on emotion. Take some time, talk to some people, relax a little bit, chill out. But I do think that parking your currencies using like digital wallets, I know Payoneer, you can do that. Ping Pong can do that. I know Ilya was asking a question about paying in RMB. That's one of the questions there on the live feed I see. Ping Pong.
I'll put it up on the screen. Yeah. So
Yeah,
what can you use to pay RMB? TrendFireWise does small amounts. OFX does not really useful here. Well, first owned by a Chinese firm, but doesn't do RMB. What else?
So, and I can talk about World First even. This is, and Nate, I'll let you jump in. I don't really know about Payoneer's product, but World First, something happened that was interesting is they've lost most of their compliance ability in the U.S. because they were bought by Alipay and became a Chinese-owned banking firm. So yeah, World First customers are bailing out pretty quick. OFX and TransferWise, they don't really have a strong product going into China because here's the thing. China is freaking hard to do banking business in. It's ridiculously hard. They have really, really insanely tight restrictions on moving money in, even tougher restrictions on moving money out. So I know that Ping Pong is massively strong in moving money, kind of unlimited quantities and volumes in and into China specifically. I don't know what Payoneers are, Nate. I'll let you touch on that. But I think that that Ping Pong and Payoneer are probably really only your two options for paying suppliers in RMB. But Nate, I'll let you talk about Payoneer.
Yeah, I guess I think as you mentioned, China is a really, really hard, market to crack. I think that's the reason we've got, a couple of offices out there actually. So one of our larger offices is in Shanghai. So we've kind of got on the ground and being really local in China because I think that's the only way to be successful there. So to answer Ela's question, you can use a company like Payoneer to pay suppliers in RMB, especially if you want to kind of utilize some of the hacks that we've learned today. But yeah, China's a really tough market, so you definitely do need a local presence and someone that knows what they're doing in that market. I wouldn't advise, trying to do it alone or using a standard, bricks and mortar bank, because if something goes wrong, you will find yourself with a lot of hassle trying to reclaim that money or even speak to someone who's speaks the local language.
Yeah, makes sense. Side B says up on the screen, totally agree with Tim. Brexit has been doing the same thing to the FX for almost 4 years. Do not panic. What tools are you guys using to review when to convert your currency? Any specific websites that people here can use and we can post in the chat? Don't rush at once.
I think a lot of our sellers just use xe.com.
Yeah.
One of the main ones just to kind of view the kind of currency and the fluctuations. Most providers, WellFirst, Payoneer, TransferWise, they'll all have a kind of live exchange rate tool on their website anyway, which you can utilize. I think as we've already talked about parking your currencies in this chat quite a lot, but I think it's important to have the functionality to do that. So you want to have local bank accounts in the regions that you're selling in to receive those funds. You don't want Amazon converting your funds for you because their markup is, extortionately high. So find a provider that can provide you with the local banking, facility to receive your US dollar, your pounds, your Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. So you can part that currency and you can manage it what's best for your business at the right time.
Yeah. Sounds good. Go,
sorry, Dan. No, the only thing I'd add too is I think to the extent possible, especially when you are going to do an FX trade, definitely reach out to whatever provider you work with and try to get live quotes. Because of course, if you look online, there's going to be a little bit of a lag on the rates that you see. So definitely have that communication. Get requoted if you don't like the level either, just to make sure that you're executing at the right level. So
yeah. Sounds good. I know it may be not so much your forte, guys, but any ideas on what to do with credit cards? Obviously, there's air miles. There's things like when you're paying for your PPC, you can contact support and ask them to up your limit, so it taps your card less per month, depending on what limit you set to. But what other ways can you use credit cards to stretch things as well? Tim?
I'm the wrong guy to ask. Credit cards are a really good short-term solution.
Yes.
And if this turns into a 2 or 3 month issue, credit cards are potentially going to get you in more trouble.
Yeah.
So before, when revenue was running and we could get inventory in, man, I loved using credit cards because, you could bring them up pretty high, get those points, get those awards, sometimes get cash back on them, and then be able to, pay them off quickly. But right now, credit cards scare me a little bit, especially like the ones like the American Express Platinum card that I use because you have to pay it back every month. So for me, I'm staying away from credit cards personally, and I'm looking at those short-term deferment options instead. Like I know I've been talking to Sellers Funding when I was working on that loan issues, and they came up with this deferment. Hey, we'll actually defer these things for 2 or 3 months because the revenue will come back, the cash flow will come back. We have to get over this 30, 60-day issue to make sure that we're solvent on the back end of this thing because we have to survive now to take advantage of the huge opportunity that's growing and blowing up in our face right now.
Yeah. Bringing over to Joe. What do you do? What's your take on it?
We used to run Virgin cards, just pay them down every month, just obviously if you're advertising because the miles are great.
Yeah.
And BA cards now because we've got so many blooming Virgin miles, we don't know what to do with them anymore.
Yeah.
So just don't use cards. Unfortunately, I do know sellers which are just loaded up on cards, and it's just you end up in a situation where these Amazon businesses are about volume and about shifting, and generally about pretty competitive pricing. So you end up loading up your cards at 30% interest, and people get very unstuck very quickly. So think hard about what you're doing before you just grab the lowest hanging fruit. Have a strategic plan as to what you're planning to do. You have to have the inventory to work around that plan, and then chat to these guys and kind of have it as part of a game plan. This is a blip.
Yeah.
We're all in this running businesses for years is the plan, not just a few months. So let's not react and get ourselves tied up in knots unnecessarily.
Yeah, totally. Agree.
Yeah, I would echo everything that these guys just said. And I think the most important thing is if you are forced into dabble with credit cards, it's just have a very clear exit strategy, right? So know what your plan is, know what the terms are around it. Again, so if there's prepayment penalties or any other policies around it as well, so that you know exactly where you're utilizing it for, and then you can get out again without getting yourself in a whole lot of trouble.
Cool. What about, again, probably not on the same table for you guys as part of this discussion, but another way that you can keep your money in your bank for longer is having better payment terms with your supplier in China. Some people, a lot of people do 30 down, then 70. Some people doing, 80% on bill of lading. It depends. What are you doing? Joe, you do super volume. Yeah.
Yeah. Now is a great time to think about things. I am, as all of us were having sort of lumpy emotional feelings about this whole journey at the moment. But I hit the crescendo at the end of last week and kind of went back out to my suppliers, and I've had great conversations today off the back of it, where you've got a double problem now. So you had all the China factories. They are obviously all closed. They are now desperate to put output. They're now making lots of things. Now, remember, e-commerce is not the biggest thing in the world. There's still a massive amount of high street retail, for which we all know is now shut.
Yeah.
There are a lot of suppliers with orders in their hands that customers are cancelling. So you are now, as an e-commerce seller, you are now in an incredibly strong strategic position to explain who you are, explain what your long-term gain is, be very confident in what you are doing, and explain that to your supplier and get the best payment terms out of them. I'm ordering more and getting more payment terms now in this current situation because I know we are the best customer for our suppliers, which I know sounds a little arrogant, but that's kind of the sphere we're in. We know that the business that will recover out of this the fastest will be Amazon businesses, because one thing we will be further and more deeply educated in throughout this process is trust, dependability, safety. We're all a bit unsure and a bit nervous, and Amazon and its whole review process and the way it works delivers massive feeling of comfort and safety to purchasers. So we're in a great position, both as a business, but also in terms of relationships with our suppliers. So it'd be very easy to get psychologically crushed, but I think it's about remaining strong and going out to your suppliers with that notion.
And let me jump in and I'll say my experience has been one of two different ways. Like there's no middle ground. A lot of these factories are, coming off of a really, really low point in their life. Like when they could not work, they were really struggling financially. So a lot of the factories are either so strapped for cash, they cannot offer any sort of terms. They need to get paid right now. Like, they need to make payroll. They need to keep the lights on. So a lot of the factories are all the way on this side. On the other side, the factories that were eligible for it are getting a massive influx of government cash. Like, so just like you're seeing stimulus packages in most of the Western world, in China, it's happening for businesses. So a lot of these Chinese factories are either getting 0% loans, or they're getting just massive grants thrown at them to keep them alive, and they're able to then push that on to us. So I'm either getting like my terms completely reduced or eliminated, like, sorry, it's got to be like 70% up front to get this order, or it's, all right, do you want 3 months worth of terms for free? No problem. You can pay us after the goods land and you've already sold for a month. So it's either like one extreme or the other, but the middle ground seems to have disappeared.
No, that makes sense. Right, so before we wrap, what I'd like to do, I'm going to set a scenario, and I want you to solve the problem for this scenario, going around the room, starting with Leo. So scenario number one, Leo. Sellers just had their funding pulled. They're caught in a bit of a trap. They're selling non-essential goods, and they need to make payroll and stuff. What should they do right now?
First thing that comes to mind, again, is just the government assistance, furloughed workers, right? So I would definitely reach out to that, make sure that you maintain employment, maintain your employees. And then if you have any existing funding, reach out to your lenders. I think that there's nothing I know personally that we appreciate more than hearing people giving us a call, being proactive, telling us what their situation is, and whether we could work with them. And that's been the case with 100% of the inbound calls that we've received in those situations. And again, I think we're a community and everyone understands that everyone is going through hardships right now. So it's a matter of just helping each other out. And that's certainly something we're doing at Sellers Funding. So just doing the best that we can for our clients and customers.
Cool. Going to Nate. So Amazon pulls the funding. You got no cash. What do you do?
Again, echo what Leo said. First point of call is to see what kind of government help there is out there for your business, or no matter how hard it might be to obtain. Just in a comment there, I think from Owen, who rightly pointed out that the big four banks in the UK aren't requiring any personal guarantees for any coronavirus business loans. I think that's up to a cap of 250,000. Need to double check. But yeah, so you can obtain a loan free of a personal guarantee with some of the big four banks. Might be a bit of a long process to go through, but it's an option. If you do want to go with an alternative provider, like Payoneer, Sellers Funding, whoever's out there, have that detailed conversation. Be forthcoming, be upfront, be transparent with what your situation is like now, how that compares to previous years, what the future impact that will be for your business, and then a package can get tailored for you, whether it's interest only, whether it's deferred payments, whether it's a slightly lower amount than what you were looking for, but just enough to kind of get you over the line. We're flexible. We are here to help the seller at the end of the day, and together we can work through it.
Cool. Joe, scenario for you. You've got a shit ton of cash sitting in the bank. It's Christmas around the corner. You've got this virus. You don't know where it's going to settle. What do? Do you go on defense or do you go on offense?
Mate, you know me, Danny. I think the thing is you've got to work out whereabouts your product sits within its sort of area and its kind of customers. So if you're doing really competitive price stuff, and it's a kind of a thing that does happen at Q4, like I'm in toys, I'm going harder than I've ever been before, but there'll be a lot of people falling by the wayside in this process. So you've just got to cut your coat according to your cloth, if that's what you've got to do, or just understand how this impacts your business. Going back to the other question you just said, 2 points really. Furloughing is obviously a very good thing if you've got to meet payroll. And number one, there's loads of bits and ways of squeezing bits out of everything and everybody. Everybody will understand and everybody helps support each other. So the government, as you know, are delaying VAT here. You could delay your payroll. You could delay your PAYE if you needed to. There's loads of different little things you can do to squeeze a bit more cash flow out of your business to keep it moving.
Yeah. Tim, I know you can go aggressive with stuff. Shit ton of cash sitting in the bank. You've got a load of products in front of you. You don't know what's going on with the virus, but what do? Do you go? Are you going on defense or are you going on offense?
Well, it depends. I'm actually going to have two different reactions.
Okay.
Well, first off, I'm not going to do anything rash. You know that. I'm going to sleep on every big decision. I'm going to talk to some friends. I'm going to make sure that I'm making logical decisions, not emotional. But also, I'm remembering there's two crises here. Okay. The first one is the virus. And the virus means there's revenue issues. There's little businesses that are going out of business. People are stuck at home. They're buying more online. They're buying a crap ton of toys because they got their kids out of school. All right, this is a more short-term issue, but I'm going to treat it differently than the long-term issue. So right now, man, I'm going to sell as many toys as I can. I'm going to be putting consumables in. I might even jump back into some arbitrage if I got some money, get some shoppers to go out and not price gouge anything, but arbitrage stuff because people want to be at home online purchasing instead of the stores. But long-term, I'm going to be preparing for a recession. Okay. And that is a different reaction where right now toys are going nuts. In 6, 8, 9 months from now, people aren't going to be buying as many super expensive non-essential items. People aren't buying $500 Roomba vacuum cleaners in 8 months from now. But right now they are because they're sick of sweeping up the dust and they're looking at dust bunnies under the couches, right? Yeah. So I'm going to be adjusting for less expensive items, more consumable stuff. I'm going to be thinking about long-term Q4 coming up. How can I be preparing now? Because the factories right now, I need to start working with them, maybe finding new ones. So I'm actually reacting to two different things. But I'm going to be aggressive, all right? Yeah. Both scenarios are going to be played differently, but I'm going to be freaking aggressive because here's the thing. I did a kind of a Facebook video a couple weekends ago. I was brokenhearted sitting out in front of the strip mall where all these businesses were closed, including some brick and mortar retail shops. It's extremely depressing. It's sad, like businesses going under. But the truth is, when we come through the other side of this, which we will, e-commerce is going to be in a stronger position than it's ever been in. Amazon's pulling loans, like all this crazy stuff that we see is like, oh, we need to retract. There's less tools available. No, all that's happening is Amazon, these other platforms, all these service providers, they're just taking a deep breath and they're about to exhale. Like you're seeing people retract, but all they're doing is they're pulling the slingshot back. And the further you pull that back, the more strength it's going to be when you release it. So people are just gathering their second wind right now. They're just taking stock of all the resources, and e-commerce is going to come out of this 20 or 30% stronger than it ever has. So we have to be able to react to the two crises individually. But if you're not planning on putting your foot on the gas right now, I think you're screwing up.
Cool. Right. Just going to quickly interject here. Tomorrow's show, we're going to be doing Chatbot Tuesday. Wednesday, the 1st of April, is going to be outsourcing and distributed teams. Thursday, the 2nd of April, we're doing Amazon compliance, certification, essential goods, and inspections, especially with what's going on at the moment with FDA approval, sanitizers, masks, all this kind of stuff. Friday, the 3rd of April, we're doing listing optimization, 2020 versus 2019. What changes are we making this year? Saturday's part 3 of Women of Amazon. Sunday, the 5th of April, is Mindset Sunday. Your health is your wealth. And then Monday, the 6th, we're going to be doing sourcing in the pandemic with Kian Gilzari. I'm going to have one last request here again for masks. If there's Amazon sellers out there listening, please share this video. I'm trying to get masks to the front line, to the critical people on the front line here in the UK, first responders, NHS. There's a lot of red tape and stuff. You know how to reach me, inbox me. Let's save some lives. I want to go around the room. I want to say a big, big thank you to everyone. So, Leo, people want to reach out to you. How do they get to you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me at leonardo.filisberto. It's Felisberto. My name's up on the screen at sellersfunding.com.
Sounds good. Nathan, how can they reach you, mate? Your microphone's turned off. Do you want to just switch that in?
Oh, yep. Sorry about that. If you want to reach me directly, you can go to nathanfo@payoneer.com. That's NATHANFO@payoneer.com. or eusalesteam@payoneer.com to reach a member of the team.
Cool. Tim Jordan, how can they reach you?
I'm around a lot of places. You can check me out on Facebook. My community is Private Label Legion. I've got a Facebook group. If you have any questions, I prefer you ask them. You join that group and ask them in there. That way everybody can kind of learn from it. That kind of that group scenario. It's good stuff.
And tell them about your podcast as well. You've got a podcast, haven't you?
Yeah, Private Label Legion. Legion Radio is the name of that podcast, and you've seen me all over the internet lately. I've got a lot of content out there. Check
Well,
it
you're
out.
doing the stuff with Helium 10 as well. So let's give that a plug. That's free. Content is around product research and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's a good point. If you're sitting around at home, you want to get a little more education and learn. Completely free resources was the Helium 10 Project X, a collaboration between Helium 10 and myself, Private Label Legion. YouTube, just search on YouTube, Helium 10 Project X, completely free content. I think we have like 15 hours worth of stuff, how to start from the very beginning and find new products. So completely free. Thanks for that. Shout out plug there, Danny.
Cool. No worries. Joe, I'm going to ask you, do you want to give out your details? I know you're mainly a seller. You're not a service
Definitely not.
and stuff.
Definitely not. I spend my life trying to hide my details. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your
even
name, your identity number, and cell phone number?
We'll put that up on the screen after, Tim. Don't worry. Yeah. Cool. Guys, thank you again so much for joining us. Gracefully giving up your time. I hope the audience is enjoying it. Audience, thank you for tuning in each and every day. There's been a loyal legion of people. I can't thank you enough. I hope this content has been helping you get through your dailies. I know it's driving you mad being locked up indoors, but I'm trying to give you something to stimulate your mind. Back here again tomorrow, 4 p.m. GMT, 12 p.m. EST, 9 a.m. PST. Again, thank you so much for everyone. We're going to sign off. Much love. Stay safe. Stay indoors. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.